Good afternoon, folks. Can you all see and hear me? Go ahead and raise your hand if you can. Awesome possum. So I hope you all had a wonderful weekend, and good to see you all here today. Today is going to be a little bit of a transitionary week. We're going to do two different lessons on two related things to what we were doing with 123D Design. Today we'll be working with 123D Make, and on Wednesday we will be working with Mesh Mixer, which is another 123D app. Again, all these are free, so don't worry about paying for anything. That said, we are not going to be doing any more 123D Design. I know I didn't go over some of the features of it, but that's the beauty in learning. I give you a good baseline, and now it's up to you to learn furthermore the different pieces on how that software works. So before I go ahead and get started teaching some 123D Make, are there any questions based on 123D Design that I did not go over? Alright, so I didn't think there would be. Thought it was pretty thorough in those lessons. But we ended up class, if I do see a question real quick. When will the bridge design results be announced? They were actually announced, I believe, last night. And thank you for posting on the Edmodo page to get Mr. Dubik rolling. The winner of this year's contest was Hannah J. Her bridge design was roughly 180, actually I think I have it up here. You can't see it very big, but her design ended up being $179,000. One of the cheaper ones that I saw, actually, pretty impressive. But Mr. D is going to be in contact with her. I don't think she's at this webinar. But yeah, so see another question here. When can we print our designs? That's another thing that's up to Mr. Dubik. It was supposed to be during lab sessions when we can start printing designs. I can probably get a design or two in Raleigh for my Raleigh folks this coming weekend, but those in Charlotte and Harrisburg, definitely ask Mr. D, hey, I'm interested to print something. But the good thing is what we're doing today, 123D Make, is essentially a way to quote-unquote 3D print. And what I mean by that is it gives you instructions to make something 2D into 3 dimensions. And I'll go over that as we go along, further along today. So by the end of today, you'll actually be able to print out of paper some 2D things and assemble them and make them into 3 dimensions. So 123D Make is really, really cool. We'll also be using 123D Make when we use our laser cutter. I'm not sure where everybody is on the lessons, or in the labs rather, sorry. So it really depends when you use your laser cutter that you'll be using Make once again. So let me see here. Alright, it looks like we are ready to get started. So I did go over a little bit about laser cutters last class, specifically about how they work, the different kinds of laser cutters, and I do see another question. Yes, we will need to download 123D Make, and I will be going over that momentarily. So we did talk a little bit about laser cutters, where they first started, how they work, different kinds of it, and the advantages of laser cutters over 3D printers or, sawing something by hand. It's also nice because you can use them on many materials, glass, metal, cardboard, or wood. In lab, we'll be using cardboard. At your own house, if you have a printer, you can use just straight paper. So we'll be downloading 123D Make and using that today. So Make is awesome because it uses 3D models, which you can import from, say, 123D Design, and then use it. It'll slice up the model into a whole bunch of different layers, places these layers on a flat plane, and you cut it out and put it together. Or the laser cutter will cut it out and put it together. It really depends on the materials you have at hand. So what we're going to do first, we are going to download 123D Make. So I'm going to send you the link to it in the chat box. It's also available right here in front of you on this page. But we're going to go ahead and work on that. So I do see a question here. You did it before class? Okay, great. You're ahead of the game, and I'm impressed. If you didn't download it before class, all right, those who were proactive will have to sit tight for just a little bit. So when you click on that link, you'll come to a page that looks sort of like this. Obviously, you'll want to click on the link that corresponds to your computer. So for PC, click PC download, Mac download, and 123D is nice because you can also use it on the iPad or the iPhone. I don't have either of those, so it doesn't help me, but I'm sure it might help some of you doing the webinars on a tablet. The software is pretty cool, though, for that reason. Android users are not in luck this time. The installation process is fairly simple. You would install it like you installed 123D Design, really. There's a couple things you'll have to click accept on when you go through it. But other than that, it took me about a minute and a half or 2 minutes for it to download from the internet and install to my computer. So I will give you a couple minutes to install it. If you've already gotten it installed, go ahead and take a look at it. You should have some STL files, which is the files that we saved in 123D. So a question is, you already have this and did the lesson, should I leave? Ultimately, it's up to you. If you think that you have a good understanding of 123D Make, you're more than welcome to leave, but not everybody does. So it's ultimately up to you. I don't want to waste your time, but I don't think that reviewing things is necessarily bad. So your call, Ben. So I would like for you to, if you've gotten this downloaded, and no rush again, I know it will take a little bit of time, I do want you to raise your hand so I know when to proceed. I see a question here. Can you send the link? Yes, I will send that one more time. And I'll actually go back up to the link up here so you can see it if you're having some trouble. To those of you who already have it, there's a website that I want you to go to so that you can find something to mess around with in 123D Make. I'll go over this a little bit later as well, so don't fret if you don't have it right now. This website called Thingiverse.com is basically a big repository of other projects people have made. So if you have already gotten 123D Make downloaded, go ahead and browse Thingiverse and find something that you would like to learn 123D Make on. Otherwise, I just want you to focus on downloading this. And I do have a file that you all can download for an example when we get to it. So again, raise your hand, keep it raised once you've gotten 123D make installed. Your download might take a while. Okay, and that is bound to happen. My goal is to get a majority of this installed for folks so that they can follow along whether or not they have it installed. The website, 40 minutes. Okay, well I hope it doesn't take that long for you. The website that has all these STL files is called Thingiverse.com. But I'm hoping that it won't take 40 minutes for you, because that's kind of a long time. 18, yeah. Loading bars are never very consistent with their time. So again, just raise your hand, keep it raised, at least when you've gotten 123D make installing. Not necessarily installed, I suppose. Yours downloaded and it's giving you a tutorial. If it's giving you a tutorial, you're more than welcome to start doing some of that tutorial, but I will be doing, my own tutorial in just a few minutes. Yeah, you'll be fine for now though. If you don't have to do the tutorial necessarily. If you're just getting in for today, we're downloading 123D make, which we'll be using for the laser cutters and for your own reference a little bit later on. So I do want you to go ahead and get that installed, or installing rather, before I proceed. And it looks like I'll just need to wait about another minute or so. And if you need this link again, I can come back to this slide. I see a question. You have to be on an iPad for right now, so can you do it on that? I know that there is an app for it for iPad, but I don't know if you can run it at the same time as the webinar. Definitely download it and see if you can. But if you can't run it dually, I'd rather you listen to me than, yeah. So at this point I will continue. I told some of you, if you already had it installed, to find an STL file on Thingiverse that you will be using to mess around with 123D make. Just as a warning though, not every file on Thingiverse will work in this. If you want a file that will most certainly work, I'm going to send you the direct link to it right now, meaning that once you click it, it will start installing. If you'd rather though, there is a manual download link on Instructables. So I prefer you download the first link that I've sent you, but you can also find it on this page. there's an app called 123D Make Intro. I'm not entirely sure what that is. Is it asking you to install it or something, or is it just there's an app coincidentally called that? Because I'm sure it's probably the tutorial or just a very basic version of 123D Make. Huh, well, I'm not entirely sure if that app is the same as this. I'd rather you go to the website and find it, but it's asking you to sign up for something. It shouldn't ask you to sign up for something. Is that the right link? Yeah, it is. Oh, you mean the Instructables link, Una? Okay, did you do the first link or the second link I sent you? The first link being the direct link, the second. Huh. It shouldn't have you sign up for anything. It should just have something like this that you'll have to find the link to directly. And the first link I sent you is just this link here to download this T-Rex. Okay, if you can X out of the tab, then great. So I see another question here. Your computer is refusing to connect to the internet, so when it does, you'll install it. Huh. Well, that'll work. But yeah. Oh, it connected? Okay, sweet. So once you've downloaded 123D Make and you found an STL file you would like to use, I would like for you to raise your hand. You don't have to use this dinosaur, but I know for sure it worked because I've already tried it a bunch of times. Alright, so what we've been doing today since we started, again, please do your best to get here on time. But what we've been doing is installing 123D Make. And we have downloaded a STL file, an STL file being a 3D printing file of a dinosaur, so that we can open it up in 123D Make. And if it's taking its sweet time to download, that's fine. This is something that you can follow along with. It's not the most complex of softwares, so that's a good thing. Yeah, no problem. This software is pretty fun though. I think you'll like it. Also, if you can't necessarily download it for slow connection or whatever it may be, go ahead and raise your hand and keep it raised. And yours is downloading art. Excellent. give you about 1 more minute. If it's not fully downloaded, that's okay. If you do have a notoriously slow connection, I will have you download on your own time Mesh Mixer as well, but not during class or anything. I'll put this on Edmodo after class ends so you can have this by Wednesday. So we will be working with this come Wednesday. So don't worry, I'll have it on Edmodo, but I would like you to have it installed. Oh, because 5 other people are on your internet? Yeah, that'll make your connection a little bit slow there. But that's okay, I understand that it does happen. So I am going to proceed, but if you're having some difficulties, go ahead and stop me. I don't want to, surpass you or anything. So I've been talking about this weird thing called STL files. STL stands for stereolithography, which is a very convenient file format to use for 3D printing because it works with almost every single CAD software. It contains written instructions for drawing what's basically a bunch of triangles in a certain order. It's not so much triangle based as I would call it vectors, which are just lines in a certain order, but close enough. And these triangles, or lines that make up triangles, are going to make up the model that you've created. So if anybody's familiar with older video games like N64, you'll notice that all these people have polygons, which are made basically out of a bunch of triangles. Everything is made out of polygons, and it's more obvious in older video games. So if you can, go ahead and open up 123D Make. If you can't, for it downloading, or you just can't download it on your computer, go ahead and follow along with me, and we'll go ahead and get started. So the first time you open 123D Make, you'll have to agree to a license. Just say I accept, as this nice little footnote that you probably can't read says. What do we say to the god of license agreements? Sure, whatever. Okay. Technically, you should always read all of this, but I don't think that's realistic for laymen like us. Once you click I accept, there will be a nice little info screen that pops up, sort of like the one that popped up the first time you opened up 123D Design. Just go ahead and X out of it. Oops, it's probably opened up a new one. Go ahead and X out of it, and you'll see a screen that looks a little bit like this. Just a big blank blue screen. That nice alliteration there. So I hope you saved whatever file you found that you want to open up in 123D Design. The one we'll be using is the T-Rex that I sent you the link to, but if you have a different STL file you'd rather work with, you can do that. I do want you to click on Import, and then navigate to the file you downloaded. Mine is the dinosaur, so it has this weird long name. And then click on Open. It will take a second to think. That's fine. But soon enough you'll have a dinosaur probably standing on its tail on your screen. So I see a question here. You're at the Autodesk configuration screen and it says installing, but it's not actually installing. You sure it's not installing? I can't say for your computer specifically, but the loading bars are not very accurate for anything basically. I would say just keep the screen on for a couple more minutes, and if no progress has been made, something weird is going on. The bar is not going across the screen. Are you sure it's not an internet thing? Just having sort of slower internet? Yes, please raise your hand if you've gotten the T-Rex or whatever design up. Okay. Well, I'm glad it's working out then. So that said, if you want to make your dinosaur not be standing on its tail, right next to where you clicked import, it should now say the STL file's name. If you click on the arrow that's sort of spinning around, just once it'll rotate your dinosaur /STL file. So what you're seeing now probably looks pretty darn familiar to you. We have the same navigation cube and couple of options on the upper right side of our screen. So this should look just like it does in design, 123 design. A little bit different, but the same concept. Similarly, the mouse commands are the same. So right click to rotate, middle click to pan, your mouse wheel will scroll in and out, or you can do the same things on this right here. This is not a CAD program. You cannot redesign this very much. If you want to do that, you'll have to go back into 123 design. So like I said, very similar controls. Rotate, pan, zoom, center, and change projection. Change projection is a little bit weird. Probably I don't think it's the same as we showed earlier. You can change your view using perspective from isographic to orthographic, or isometric to orthographic. This is isometric. This is, wait, hang on, let me make sure I got that right. It's basically just a different way to view your perspective, so don't worry about what this does. The one right above it will center your object on the screen. But other than that, nothing too crazy that we haven't seen before. So we're going to take a look at the right side of our screen now, or sorry, left side of your screen. There's all sorts of little options that will have popped up once you've gotten your dinosaur loaded up into your program. Manufacturing settings, object size, and construction technique. So let's skip manufacturing settings for a second and go down to the object size option. This is literally the actual size that your object will appear in if you were to print it. So notice the units are in inches, so we've got 8 inches long by 3 inches high and 2 inches wide of a dinosaur. We have uniform scale selected, so we can make it bigger but notice that once you make one dimension bigger, all the rest of your dimensions will scale along with it. It'll take a second to think, but it will do that. If you click on original size instead, it'll be a lot bigger. So we'll change this in a little bit, but for now let's go ahead and make sure that both original size and uniform scale are selected. Now, underneath construction technique, that's where the magic happens. I want you to click on this drop-down menu and select these different slices. Yours almost done downloading? Alright, great. That actually went a lot faster than I expected, Grayson. But I want you on your own time, and by your own time I mean right now, sorry, to select these different kinds of techniques and see how your design changes. For some of these, you'll get a weird pop-up next to the manufacturing settings menu. If you do, just sit tight, we'll change that in a moment here. So 123D is not working, your computer says it stopped because of a problem. Did it end up installing, or is it just being slow, or just not being happy with you? It installed, it's just not letting you. Alright, try to open it again if it stopped. If it doesn't work, it might just be the webinar software taking up a lot of resources. So just going through all these to see how it works. Well, that's weird. It's done nice. Go ahead and open her all up then. It did, but it still didn't work. I don't know. I feel like a lot of webinars, Marissa, are of me telling you to just sit tight, and I'm really sorry that's the case. Because it's the case now too. So what all these options do is change the way the software slices up your model, or doesn't slice up your model for that matter. It changes how it will fit on your pieces of paper, and it'll also change how it's constructed physically. Some types work better than others, it just depends on which model you're building. And you can sort of see that when you're messing around with these options here. So these are the 6 different options here. We've got stack slices, which will just stack a bunch of different slices on top of each other with some interlocking parts. We've got interlocked slices, which sort of looks like an office building. We've got curve, which will give you some curved slices. I know, I feel so bad. I need to figure out something to help you out with that. But radial slices, which will cut out from one point. 3D slices, which will slice your objects in 3 dimensions. It looks really nice, but it's not as usable, I would say. for cutting out on your own. And the last one we get is folded panels. Folded panels is pretty cool. If anybody's interested in paper craft, which is sort of like origami but a little bit more in depth, folded panels basically does that. It is just one large flattened model that you can fold and put together. It's just one big flat version of your model. Are we ignoring the irony of a UFO in an engineering class? I feel like there's no irony in a UFO. I feel like the irony would be if it was like a history book or something. But these folded panels basically are real life polygons, so if you remember what I said about old video games earlier, these folded panels sort of will look like old school video game characters. But we're going to choose for the first option stacked slices. And if you do have original size selected underneath the object size, it'll give you an error. So what we'll have to do is finally go back up to the manufacturing settings. And we're going to change the size of our piece of paper. So like I said, this is going to be actual size, so we need a really large sheet of paper. If you wanted to do it on just a normal size piece of paper, you can scale down your size, so you don't necessarily have to do this. But because we have it as original size, let's scroll down to B1. .83 inches by 39.37 inches by 0.17 inches. For you to download the PDF, it says you need to sign up. You should not need to download any of the PDFs off of the Instructables download to get this dinosaur. If you're referring to the PDF that will appear when you're finished with this, you shouldn't have to sign up for anything. If you had to stack slices, would you have to glue it? It depends on what your settings are, to be honest. There are some settings we won't go over today, such as dowels, which make it so you don't necessarily have to glue it. But if you're just using a piece of printer paper, you'll probably have to glue it. Hang on 1 second. Okay. So what you should see is this weird sliced up dinosaur. Poor dinosaur, but it's okay. We'll work with it for now. What you'll see for some of these pieces is that they are big and they're dark blue. What this means is that these slices will fall off of your design. They are not correctly assembled so that they won't fall off your design. For the most part, it's not going to be a big deal. If there's a lot of blue, you'll have to do some resizing or changing which construction technique you use, but some blue is okay. So again, if you get a lot of blue, you'll need to reset the model to a different size. I already talked about changing the piece of paper, so I won't talk about that again. What we're going to do now is change our construction technique so that the blue pieces don't necessarily occur. So if you look on the left-hand side, once we select stack slices, there are a bunch of different options that'll pop up. The one that we're most interested in for now is slice direction. So we'll click on that just once. This nice little pop-up will tell you what it's doing. It'll tell you to select a direction to rotate your slices by. But what I'm going to have you do, instead of doing that, I'm going to have you move your mouse until it's over the blue circle, and then click on it once. So hover your mouse over this blue circle here and click on it. At the very bottom of your screen, you will see a rotate by angle option, and we're going to select 90 and then hit enter on our keyboard for that. So we're clicking on slice direction, clicking once anywhere on this blue circle, and then typing in 90 and then enter on the bottom of our screen. Exactly, now all you need is a paper that big. But remember, like I said, if you do want to, you can always resize it to make a sheet of paper that small. I can resize this definitely to make it, you know, normal letter size paper. But for some designs, you will need them to be a bigger size than that. But now notice what happens once you've done that. Once you change the slice direction, it was slices going along the length of the dinosaur. Now it's just slices, it slices at a different axis essentially. And this axis makes it a little bit, makes it have a little fewer blue parts. The blue parts that are there are smaller than it was before. So this would be a little bit nicer to print than what we had previously. So did that. And if you don't like what you see, you can always hit reset. So once you've gotten the dinosaur in and it's imported, I want you to go to stacked slices underneath construction technique. I want you to click on slice direction. Then click on the blue circle around your dinosaur. Rotate by angle 90 and hit enter on your keyboard. That's all we've gotten so far. So like I said, you'll probably still have some blue stuff. It's not a big deal though, because we made the blue slices smaller than they were before. So at this point, you probably noticed that there's all sorts of weird sheets of paper on the right side of your screen. Alright, you'll have noticed all of this stuff here. This will keep track of how many sheets of paper will be cut, or that you will cut. Basically what this is doing is cutting each slice of your dinosaur out and laying them flat. So we can cut this by a laser cutter, or we can cut them with scissors. This would be a more difficult one to do with scissors. So save your complex models for the laser cutter. can see how many parts your dinosaur has, but you'll also see these sort of red parts that have appeared on your model on the 2D section on the right. And they all have a whole bunch of different numbers on it. Does anybody want to take a wild guess at what these numbers mean? Any ideas on why this software added these numbers? How many there are? That's the case for up here, but I'm talking about specifically on the sheets themselves. Yep, they're slices, and yep, they are which order that you put them together. Alright. So there is a little bit, there are some bugs on this, but I'll get over that in just a second here. If we go over and scroll down to where it says assembly steps, you're right in that that's the order you put them together. But if you click on assembly steps, you'll find a scroll wheel at the bottom of your screen. Not a scroll wheel necessarily, but a scroll bar. You can actually see a construction of this dinosaur step by step. Which I think is really, really cool. When you do that, notice that the piece that you are connecting does light up on the right side of your screen. So you can see what you're putting together at the time. So that's the physical construction diagram here. Now, like I said earlier, this is still a little tiny bit imperfect. Sometimes it will highlight the step right before or after it, but it's not that big of an issue, I don't think. You can click on, I think you can click on them independently. Well, I guess you can't. Basically, don't worry if it's not the exact right part. It's pretty close, so no worries there. Now notice that some of these numbers have a hyphen and then another number after it. Any ideas of what this does? We've got 25, then 26.1, 26.2. What differentiates these? The arm layers, that's what these are, yeah, but I'm talking about the numbers themselves on it. Which side they are on, that's a good guess. Which layer, still another good guess, but it's a little bit more tricky than that. And I'll just go ahead and tell you because it is tricky, like I said. A lot of the time that we slice something, not all the pieces of the slice will be a part of the same slice. It's a bit weird to think about. So let's take a look at our object here. Let me find one that does this pretty well, if I can find one that is. Let's see where it lights up 25. Okay. Trying to find the next layer to it. Anyways, so say that step 19, for example, had part of the head and part of the tail, but nothing in between. These are parts of the same slice, but you'll have to assemble them separately. So they're all attached in the same step, but they're not connected to each other. So a little weird to think about here. At this point, say we wanted to print out this dinosaur and assemble it. There's also an option called Get Plans at the bottom left of your screen. It will display the sheets that you've created a little bit bigger, and will allow, or it will also give you like written steps on how to make this. So you want to make sure that the file type you has is EPS. And for now, I want you to click on Export. If you would like to print whatever you've made at home, keep in mind what size your paper is. You could also click on Print. But for now, we want it to be clicking on Export. And you want to save this now, or sorry, a save menu will pop up after you click on Export. So make sure that you name it something that you will remember and save it somewhere where you can find it. Just so you can access it later. The file that will result is going to be a zip file. It will contain all of the pieces of paper that they created, as well as the plans to build this itself. So I do want you to raise your hand once you have saved your files for today, or for now at least. So just keep in mind that you can do this with your home printer in a couple hours of time. Just remember to change your paper size back to letter, and reformat your T-Rex that way. So I do see a question. You were on your computer and it stopped working. You mean the software stopped working? So it's, huh. I'm really just thinking it's a computer resource thing, meaning that there isn't enough RAM to, your computer. Huh. That's weird. Your dad just updated it. I really do think it'll work better once you're not on webinar. Has that been the case? Can anyone answer this question for me? Do these softwares work better for you when you're not actively in a webinar? They work better when you're not in webinar? Okay, that's what I thought. That makes sense. So Marissa, what I'm thinking is happening to you, it's not a software thing. I think it's a hardware thing. So updating the computer is not going to do much for it unless you are physically going into the computer and adding RAM or a better graphics card or something. So how do you get out of plans mode? Does escape not work? I would just click on one of the different settings to get out of plans mode here. So thanks for answering that. I see a bunch of works the same, and some they do get laggy. So another thing to say, if it's getting laggy, it's bound to happen when you're on an active conference. It should be working a little bit better outside of the webinar. So that said, there is some stuff I haven't really gone over. Dowels, for example, which can help your construction be a little bit more solid and require less glue probably. I'm not going to go over that. But you can definitely give it a try on your own time. Saying your RAM usage is at 60% and webinar, but 32 out of it. Yeah, that's to be expected. The webinar does take a big toll on RAM. Luckily, free softwares for the most part don't use terribly much RAM. But that's pretty much all I had for today. You can do this on your own too with stuff that you designed in 123D Design with some glue and some like sewing pins. But like I mentioned earlier, there is this wonderful website called Thingiverse. It's a big repository of stuff that people have created and uploaded that you can download and mess around with yourself. So if you find something cool that you would like to assemble, now you know how, and it's very easy. If you're still having some trouble with 123D Make, fear not. This is going to be the only day we really use it in class, beyond in the lab itself. So do you print the dyno out with your printers? You definitely do not have to. But the thing is, you are able to, if you really wanted to. In fact, I would love to see somebody take something and assemble it using this software, if anyone wants to, just for funsies. Yep. I wouldn't do it for the dinosaur. That's a really complex model. I would do it for something more simple. It also doesn't work quite as well with just printer paper as it does with cardboard. So you might want to use a little bit thicker of a paper if you can. I don't know what capabilities y'all's has. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It would look a little bit weird because it's just made of straight up paper, which is why we tend to use cardboard for it. Cardstock would probably work a little bit better, but it would be a little bit thin. Notice that the thickness of the slices is based off the thickness of your paper, which for this B1 paper, or actually, it looks like for all the paper, is about the same thickness. But I do think cardstock would hold up a little bit better. Some of these are a little bit thicker. You can't print cardboard? No, but you can laser cut cardboard. If you have the capability, of course, and that's really if you have the capability. That said, that's all I really had for today. Does anybody have any questions on 123D Make in general? So if you do not have any questions, you're free to go. I am here for questions, though. I feel like the software is pretty simple. Yeah, no problem. Thanks a bunch for coming out. We're going to be using Mesh Maker on Wednesday. And then the class after that, we're going to start with the Raspberry Pis. I'd probably recommend you download it in advance just because it seems to take a little bit of its sweet time. But I'll send a link on Edmodo after class to tell you to do that. So if you don't, you don't. There's going to be some folks that don't, I can guarantee you. I know, that was a bad example, wasn't it? Yeah, just because your computer and some other folks' computers seems to be going a little bit slow. So there's my actual answer. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, just do it because, for funsies. Alright, folks. Well, no, you're actually not the only folk that's having computer issues. Yours are just kind of severe, and I don't know why. But alright, I am going to head out. I'm not calling you out or anything, I promise. I'm just not sure how long it'll take myself, so yeah, no problem. Alrighty, folks.